Good afternoon, Scott here, known as Cantaloupe to some online, and I'm bringing a video to you on a subject that's interesting to me. It might be of interest to you or someone you know. And I want to go over a couple of things regarding my recent proposal online, if you saw that, if you're aware of my videos and the actual proposal. Now, I understand it's unconventional. I want to start with that observation. I'm not confused about it, and I think that some people might think I'm confused about it. They might, see the, wild difference of this type of proposal going to a 14-year-old from a 49-year-old, first of all. Second of all, with the speed with which I proposed, that is, we knew each other for a relatively short period of time, haven't really met or associated in person, and we also haven't even communicated in person. However, now I want to make a big, huge however here. I have learned something in my life that I think is very uncommon, and that is you strike while the iron is hot. And you don't need to know everything to know enough about something to draw conclusions. Granted, Miss Kayla, the recipient of my proposal, did not actually see all the same things that I saw when I proposed. She's not aware necessarily of all of the, features and potential pitfalls and the details, the circumstances that I am seeing from my perspective, and she doesn't need to, is my point. God bless her in her 14 years of wisdom, and, from my perspective on that point, I saw enough. I saw enough to know that it would be beautiful, it would work, and it would be forever. And I have no more reason to wait at that point, regardless of how conventional or unconventional it may be, regardless of how appropriate or inappropriate some people may view the gesture. Because, here's the thing, there are things that just simply shouldn't qualify into the equation. They should not be part of my consideration or her consideration. Other people's opinions on a marriage proposal aren't relevant necessarily. I mean, I understand that there are some cultural significant factors. There are some things that affect the family. There are some things that affect her friends and her circles and her situation herself, of course. But so in conclusion, I want to just be clear that I'm not unclear myself about how unconventional this gesture was and is. I think that a lot of people are viewing it inappropriately, first of all, because it's not their business. Second of all, they're saying that it's a sign of, instability. It's so wildly unconventional that it must be inappropriate. It must be the product of immaturity. It must be the product of inexperience. It must be, canceled somehow by third parties if necessary, by any means necessary. Let's get a handle on this situation because it's so inappropriate. Well, I want to be clear. In history, in human history, I bring this up a lot. The marriage age has been very young, and I don't mean in terms of consent for sex, because that's perhaps connected later on, but I mean to be betrothed, to be engaged, to be wed. Historically, in human history, it is wildly young. 14 is actually right in the middle, I think, based on what I've read from history books and fiction and historical fiction. It is not unheard of to be betrothed or engaged or married, in fact, at that age. We in America, we in Western civilization right now, we have a pretty messed up situation. We have a messed up legal situation where things have gotten out of hand with prejudice being the prejudgment of actions based on symbolic fitting of descriptions to behaviors. I'll say that again. What we do now, instead of waiting for there to be a problem, waiting for there to be a crime, that is, we look for opportunities to match legal language to actions, legal language to behaviors and choices, so that we can preempt them outside of court. And this really is what it boils down to. It's making a prejudiced decision, a prejudgment, before going to trial, which is patently illegal, but that's a digression. I think that this problem is bigger than anybody here realizes. It has changed the landscape of justice and our entire culture when it comes to what is proper and acceptable in terms of romance and social interaction. And from what I've seen at this point, starting with COVID, basically recently, there has been a a wild attack on people's ability, the general public's ability to commingle, to socialize between themselves on a random basis, where you could just used to be able to go out and meet people, used to be able to hang out and actually your circles would very effortlessly mix with other circles, and friends would go from one place to another, and you would have overlap and that kind of thing. You don't have that so much anymore with social distancing, and I don't think it's an accident. I'm going to say one last thing about this part. I don't think it's an accident. I think that social distancing is part of a greater social plan that is not transparent. It's being very deliberately implemented by an administration that is interested in domination, interested in obedience, cooperation, putting down protests before they happen for their own safety, so that stability can be protected. You hear this word a lot: stability, social stability, civic stability, and the elimination of arguing, right? Arguing with your manager, your boss, your authority, your local authority, or your political authorities, whoever they may be. You hear a lot about this, and it has become the common practice to separate people. And it is done by way of psychology, is done by way of suggestions in the media and everything you're exposed to, by the culture that is instilled and programmed all around you to keep people separate, to keep groups separate, circles separate. It was pretty much started with COVID from my perspective. And this connects with my original idea that due to our massive problems with our justice system, and compounded by this problem where a paranoid administration is forcing people apart for their own safety and stability, you have the total destruction of what used to be a somewhat natural landscape where people could just meet each other effortlessly. They could intermix and commingle without a great deal of interference. And nowhere is this more evident than just now in my proposal to Kayla, from a couple months ago. And the wild attack and the entitlement by third parties, dozens of third parties, who jumped on it, saying this is inappropriate. You're acting foolishly. I was called asinine. I was called asinine. They said you're an intelligent fellow. Why are you being so asinine? I beg your pardon, sir. Nobody asked you who I should propose to. I'm not having sex with anybody. I'm not, raping anybody. Are you confused? I want to be clear about this. If she were to accept my proposal, I even stated in the proposal and several times around the proposal that I'm willing to wait until she's 18 if necessary, if that's what it takes. But again, in many parts of the world and all throughout human history, marriage hasn't been a problem for anybody. Okay, and when it's legitimate and consensual and accepted by the people and their families. Okay, I'm just saying it's not your business just because you think there may be a problem, just because you think a symbol may perchance fit a particular behavior. There has to be some kind of damage. There has to be a breach of contract and a complaint. And if there isn't, I will thank you kindly and sincerely to mind your goddamn business. I'm not confused that it's unconventional. I am confused why people think it's their business. So, when the love is present, and the consent is present, and all that needs to be known between them is already known as far as the likeliness of future success and happiness, that's all that needs to be done. So, enjoy your life of never getting married, or getting married in your 20s, or 30s, or whatever. That's not my business. Keep your nose out of my business, and we'll be friends. It's real easy. Reach out if you like with questions or comments down below. Thank you.